Okay, this is the second half of the chapter 11 lesson 1 video. This is going to teach us how to graph those linear equations we were talking about. So this is our practice problem number 1 in your notes. The equation is y equals 4x. So I want you to remember that the equation that we keep in our mind for linear equations is y equals mx plus b. Remember, the m is the slope and the b is the y-intercept. So those are important numbers for us, and we want to make sure that we show that when we are doing these problems. So our equation here is y equals 4x. The number that's in the m spot, that's the number in front of the x, is our 4. And now we're looking for the number in the b spot. The b is the number that's being added to the end of the equation. Well, nothing's being added here, so I can pencil in a plus 0, and that tells me that my y-intercept is 0. That tells me that my line is going to cross the y-axis right there at the point 0, 0, the origin. My slope, my m number, is positive 4, so that tells me my line is going to point up. It also tells me it's going to be a pretty steep line. Remember, a slope of 4 means we're going to rise 4, run 1. Rise 4, run 1. So I'm just getting this visual in my head to prepare myself for what I think my answer is going to look like. Now, when I go to graph this equation, x is called the independent variable. That means I get to choose my x numbers, and then I'm going to substitute those into the equation to see what I get for y. That's going to create an ordered pair or a coordinate pair for me, and then I can plot that on the coordinate plane and then repeat till I get a couple points and see what my graph looks like. So I've got a positive slope, a whole number slope. That tells me that I can choose any number in the world that I want for x. I'm going to choose numbers that I think are easy to do math with. Those are 1s and 0s. I'm going to choose the number -1 first. And remember, what I have to do with that -1 is I have to substitute it in here for x, do the math on this side, and see what comes out for y. So I'm going to start off with 4 times -1 plus 0. I'm only going to put the plus 0 here for the first one. After that, I know the plus 0 isn't really going to change anything for me. But 4 times -1 is -4. Add 0 to that, and that gets me -4. So when x is equal to -1, y is equal to -4. I'm going to repeat the same process for 0 and 1. So I have 4 times 0. I could write this plus 0 down at the end, but I'm not going to. It's kind of a waste of my time. 4 times 0 is 0. So that tells me when x is 0, y is also 0. Now I do the same thing with my positive 1. 4 times +1 is +4. So when x is +1, y is +4. 3 points is enough to tell me that if I've got a straight line going on. You could do a 4th point or a 5th point, but I'm going to stick with 3. And I'm going to graph my coordinate pairs. The first point is -1, -4, so I start at 0, 0, walk -1, jump -4. My second point is 0, 0, so I'm going to walk 0, jump 0, put a point there at the origin. And my third point is 1, 4, so I'm going to walk 1, jump 4. Now I'm happy to see that my y-intercept point is at 0. That's what I was hoping for. I'm also happy to see that my line is pointing upward. That's my positive slope. And my points are forming a nice straight line here. So I'm going to draw my line through, put my arrows at the end. Make sure your line is nice and long. Take it the whole way through the coordinate plane. We don't want any itty-bitty baby lines. And that's my graph. Remember, I'm in charge of the x's. Because I had a whole number slope, I used -1, 0, and 1 for my x's because those are nice, easy math numbers. We're going to see a fraction slope next, and when we see that, we're going to see that we choose some different x's. But for right now, whole number slope, easy x's, -1, 0, 1. Do your substitution and see what comes out for your y numbers, and then plot the points and connect them. The next one we're going to do is number 4. Number 4 has a fraction slope. My m number this time is 4/5. That tells me that it's still a positive number, so my line is still pointing up, but now I'm rising 4, running 5. Looks a little different this time. I also have a b number this time. I have a number being added to the end, so that tells me that my y-intercept is b, as 1, and that my line is going to cross the y-axis at positive 1. So I'm expecting it to cross through right there where I put that little guess point. This time I've got a fraction slope. Fraction slopes change things a little bit. My job is to try to get whole numbers to plot easily on my coordinate plane. So to get a whole number, I can't choose -1, 0, 1. Instead, I want you to take a look at the numbers for x that I'm going to choose. This time I'm choosing -5, 0, and 5. 0 is always a great number because 0 is going to take this fraction, multiply it by 0, and get rid of it. Good number. Why do you think I chose -5 and +5? Where do you think those 5s came from? Hopefully you said that the 5s came from the denominator, because it did. I know that if I multiply a fraction times a whole number, I can do some simplifying. I can cross-cancel. And if I choose these whole numbers correctly, I can cancel out that denominator. So let's see what happens when I substitute -5 in for x. So I have that's a +4/5. Let me get rid of that negative sign. I have +4/5 times x. So that's where I'm going to put my -5. Remember, if I multiply a fraction times a whole number, I have to put the whole number over 1 to make it a fraction. Don't forget your +1. The +1 comes after my x. And now I'm going to follow the order of operations and do some multiplying first and adding next. I've got numerators, denominators. I know that I can simplify on the diagonal, right? I can divide a 5 out of both of those numbers. 5 divided by 5 is 1. -5 divided by 5 is -1. And now I can multiply straight across. 4 times -1 is -4. 1 times 1 is 1, so I don't have to write my denominator of 1. I'm going to bring down the +1 here. -4 plus 1 is -3. So when x is -5, y is -3. Let's see that again with the 0 in for x. 4/5 times 0. Don't forget to add the +1 at the end. 4/5 times 0 is 0. Any number times 0 is 0. So I get 0 plus 1. Simplify that. And that tells me that when x is 0, y is +1. Last one, we're going to do +5 in for x. So I start off with 4/5 times +5. Don't forget to put your 5 over 1 to make it a fraction. Don't forget your +1 at the end. Now I see that I can simplify on the diagonal here. I can divide a 5 out of both of those numbers. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And now I'm going to multiply straight across. 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. I don't have to write a denominator of 1, but I do have to bring down my +1 here. And 4 plus 1 is +5. So when x is +5, y is also +5. So last thing we want to do is plot those points. We'll start with -5, -3. So start at the origin, walk -5, jump down 3. There's my first point. Next point is 0, 1. Walk 0, jump 1. Next point is +5, +5. So walk 5, jump up 5. Look at those points, all in a nice line, right? We've got our line passing through the y-axis at +1, and we have our positive slope being shown. Let's connect those points. I've got my line graphed. We will go through more of these tomorrow, but for right now, you have an assignment. Your assignment is to do questions number 2, 3, 5, and 6 on page 2, and don't forget to do your Google form.